All right. Well, I guess I will start by welcoming everybody here tonight. And we'll start by reminding everybody, if you have cell phones, to please shut them off or silence them. This is the City Council meeting, and the date is March 19th, 2018. And we will start by standing for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, then we will start with introductions. And I'll start with myself because I am a council member and I am in the mayor's chair tonight because I am acting mayor for Lisa Whalen, who is absent tonight. And then I'll go to my left with council members Patricia Thoele, Mike Molitor, Shannon Bruce, our city engineer Paul Hornby with WSB. And then we have Kris Linquist, the city clerk, and the director of administration Cassandra Tabor. And to my right, we have the city administrator Mike Barone, finance director Brian Grimm, community director and development director David Abel, the city attorney Ron Batty with Kennedy and Graven, and our chief of police Paul Falls. Are there any changes to the agenda? No? Okay. Can I have a motion then to approve as presented?
So moved.
I'll second.
Okay. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion passes 5-0. We do have a special presentation.
4-0.
4-0. Oh, yes. Sorry about that. 4-0. We do have a special presentation tonight, the fourth quarter year-end 2017 financial update, and I think, Brian, you were doing that, right?
Yep, yeah, thanks, Madam Mayor and Council. First of all, I'll start off by saying the reason this report usually comes a little later than the other quarterly reports is because we've tried to time it with our auditors come usually the first week of March, early part of March. So it's nice to be able to get them, I guess, just to look at the numbers and be able to say, yeah, everything looks good versus to come and bring something and then be like, I guess never mind, or not really that, but just that something has changed or whatever. So we usually just wait and do it at this mid-March here. So that's why you're seeing the fourth quarter report here at the meeting tonight. So what you'll see, and I've actually added for the year-end one a summary report. It's on page 3 of your packet where I highlighted in the memo some of the main revenue and expenditure items, and I guess I'll maybe even skip ahead to page 4 where I basically tried to summarize there by more the main categories of revenue within the general fund there. So you'll see we basically came in within 1% of what we budgeted, which I think is pretty good when you're talking a $4.75 million general fund budget. That way our revenues came in at basically about $4.7 million. There you see the about a little less than 1% variance with our property tax collection is good when you think that's pretty much less than 1% or 0.5% of what basically is delinquent taxes there. Everything else came in basically within $8,000, $20,000, $12,000, all those different relatively minor variances in the grand scheme of things for our total, as I referenced there. I don't know if anyone has any questions with the revenues. Otherwise, maybe I'll just go on to the expenditures.
I had a question that I asked Mike this morning and I didn't get a chance to ask you. Can you give us an idea of what's in the other category?
The other is it's investment revenue. It's like reimbursements if we have insurance proceeds and stuff. So it's that type of, I guess, miscellaneous category, for lack of a better term. Things that really don't have. Most of these are per our. I guess the audit, for, the GASB and stuff, as far as what categories to group them in. So, basically, it's investments, it's reimbursements, it's that type of revenues. Yep.
Thanks.
Hey, Brian, on the building permits and licenses, we're just down a little bit. How are we tracking for spring?
It's early in the year. I think I looked from a year-to-year comparison, I think at the end of February, and I think we were at 50,000 this year and 75,000 last year. So I think it's a little slower this year, but I think that's been a regional thing from what I'm hearing. I mean, from what I hear, there's still a demand from the housing market. I mean, there's, as far as needing homes to be built and stuff versus supply and demand type thing. But I think it was winter, the first couple months of the year. It's always pretty slow and pretty hard to gauge where you're going to end up at 2 months into the year. So otherwise, I'll move on to page, I think 6, and 5 is just the detail of the revenues, and that was summarized on the previous page. So page 6, I tried to do the same type of thing for year end here and hit more of the main functions in the general fund. So the general government, public safety, public works. We did have a budgeted transfer, park and rec, and then some small amount of other there. So you can see there we actually came in about 3.5% better than what we budgeted. We budgeted just shy of $5 million and actually spent 4.827, for rounding there. And I had highlighted in the memo the biggest, I guess, savings from budget to actual, where we were basically down a community service officer position the whole year in public safety, so that made up the majority of that variance. And then for the public works, for the general fund component, we pretty much had a pretty easy year, I guess, for lack of a better term, as far as like some of the snow ice removal. So some of those guys didn't have to, the employees there didn't spend as much time in more streets and snow, or more snow and ice specifically, and maybe spent more time doing water stuff or other stuff in their job description. And then also I think they were down probably about a position for the year too, as far as never quite got back up to full boat there, I guess, or full authorized staff there. So I don't know if anyone has any questions on the expenditures. I guess the other point, I'll maybe go back to what I had said in the memo. We budgeted to spend down about $244,000 this year, and actually with when the actual revenues and expenditures are tallied up, we actually ended up spending down about $115,000. So you can see the 4.7 to the 4.82 revenue versus expenditure difference. But we did come in better than budgeted, but still we didn't have, I guess, a spend down fund balance, which we planned for. So I don't know if anyone has any other questions on the expenditure. The detail pages were just more of the next pages 7, I think, through 12.
Did anybody have any other questions? No.
Otherwise, then the last page is the standard, the cash in investments for the city by all the different funds, the general fund, as well as the project funds we have with the street projects. Obviously, that'll be spent down during the completion of the projects this spring. Our enterprise funds, water, sewer, etc. for I guess our total cash and investments across all city funds there. So otherwise, yeah, if there's any other questions, I'll take those now. Otherwise, I think we'd just be looking for a motion to probably just accept that we had the report, and then in May we'll have the full city audit, the 100-some plus pages, that has obviously even more detail for our year end that we submit it to state auditor's office and all the other agencies that need our final financial audit report. So
Okay. So you need a motion to approve?
yeah, it'd probably just be good for the record, just a motion to accept the fourth quarter financial report.
Is there a motion to approve the presentation of the fourth quarter report?
So moved.
Second?
I'll second.
All in favor? Say aye.
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 And all opposed? And the motion passes 4-0. Okay, persons to be heard. And we do have David Opheim. If you'd like to come up. I just wanted to quickly read what the persons to be heard says. The City Council invites residents to share new ideas and concerns related to city business. And we'd like you to limit to no more than 3 minutes. City Council does not take action tonight, although we would refer issues for follow-up with staff and for possible future meetings. And please state your name and your home address.
Understood, and thank you. My name is David Opine, and I'm here with my wife, Patricia. Our address is 5370 East 2 Avenue in Minnetrista, and I'm a 49-year resident of the city, well, of the West Concord area. Teresa and I together I've been here since '87. And I will do my very best to comply with the guidelines. And Kris and I have a situation going on where the neighbor next door has an exterior mounted power vent fan on their new fireplace, and it generates an exhaust noise in excess of 65 decibels measured at the property line. And this does exceed the MPCA standards for noise pollution in both daytime and nighttime hours. It is creating a significant impact on the quality of our life in our home, and we have attempted to work it out with the neighbors, and we're unsuccessful. Have been speaking with David, and we're looking for a way to resolve it. But we do feel that the MPCA noise standard, which just states that people in a residential area during the daytime shouldn't be exposed to more than 65 decibels, 60 to 65 depending on the 10% measurement or the 50% of 1 hour measurement. And at nighttime, no greater than 55 decibels with I think it's L50 and anyway, it's 50 or 55 during the nighttime, and we're at 65 when the thing is running. Kind of looked at the city of Minneapolis' noise ordinance, and they have adopted the MPCA noise standard in their city code. And then furthermore, they state this: individuals are not required to welcome unwanted noise into their homes, and there's simply no right to force unwanted noise into the home of an unwilling listener, and there's compelling interest in preventing such noise on a content-neutral basis. It's the intent of the Minneapolis City Council to prevent excessive noise without unreasonable infringing on the rights of the inhabitants of the city and visitors. Plymouth goes another step and says, good noise they state no person shall permanently install or replace any air circuit device except for a window air conditioner in any outdoor location unless the device in that location complies with the noise level standards of the MPCA section 15 standard. We just feel like it would make sense for the city of Minnetrista to implement and ratify in the code basically the same type of noise pollution standards and enforcement capability. We feel kind of like we did nothing to deserve this. We are trying to work with the owner to moving ahead. We're uncertain of the odds of success, but did I hit the 3 minutes? Anyway, thank you for your listening, and thank you for the opportunity to get in front of the city council, and much appreciated.
Great. Well, thank you. And we will bring this up and consider talking about it for the future. So, thanks. Okay. Our consent agenda. Are there any items on the consent agenda that you would like removed?
I'd like to take off item G.
G?
The change order for the water system improvements.
Okay.
And I'd like to remove item F.
Okay. Anybody else? Okay. So, the consent agenda then. We are looking to approve the work session, letter A, work session meeting notes, meeting minutes from February 20, 2018. Letter B, approve the regular meeting minutes from February 20th, 2018. Resolution to approve the claims. Resolution to approve the CUP for Buell Consulting, Inc., 4700 Marywood Lane. E, resolution to approve the variance for Eric and Alyssa Enjazer, 1135 Marina Drive. H, the resolution to accept the public improvements and authorize final payment for 2016 water system improvements, water treatment plan construction CP 02-15. I, the resolution to accept public improvements for the watershed development. J, resolution to award the Gale property lease quote. Resolution K, to approve Third Amendment to Woodland Cove Third Edition subdivision agreement. And L, to the resolution to accept the public improvements for the Woodland Cove First Lake Edition development. Is there a motion to approve A, B, C, D, E, H, I, L, K, H, I, J, K, and L?
Actually, I think we want to take off H as well because that That's the approval of the payment, and I've taken off G for the change order for that item.
So both would be
take
removed?
Both G and H off.
Okay. So we will look at, again, A, B, C, D, E, I, J, K, and L. Do I have a motion to approve those? Oh, and E.
So moved.
And a second?
I'll second.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
And opposed? Okay, motion approved, 4-0. And let's go Mike, letter F.
Can we pull up the packet on the screen? I think it's page 70. Yeah. So the question I have, and first of all, I'll just clarify my understanding. The areas in red are the areas that the applicant wants to exchange for a wetland bank, correct? Now, if I'm looking at this plat correctly, I don't think any of the actual building pads are on the red. Is that a fair statement?
The one, this one touches the back of the building pad, as this is touching the corner of the building pad up here as well. So they're not on it, but they're touching them.
Okay. I guess my concern is, I prefer, I think, and it's kind of in line with our overall objectives of the city, is to try to minimize wetland disruption. If they're not building on it, I'm not sure why they need to take out so much. And second to that is, could they leave that and then we instead grant a variance for the setback on that? So if you could give a little bit of thought or a little commentary on that, that would be helpful.
I'll probably have to. I mean, the setback thing. Obviously, that's something the city council has, power over in terms of the setback. I'd probably have to turn to Mr. Hornby, and more from a grading standpoint. Many times, what we run into is grading issues with the overall stormwater for the site. So, Paul, do you have any insight to add to that?
Well, with the overall grading, it's not unusual to have some partial impacts to a wetland, and in this one it's not unusual. I think that the thing that strikes me as a little bit different on it is that you have a wetland that part of the impact is for a filtration basin and for a stormwater pond, but that also did go through the technical panel for review along with the administrator for the Wetland Conservation Act. And it's acceptable in order to allow them to either replace or to buy credits from a bank, in which they're looking at purchasing credits from the Mater Bank. So in this case, that impact A is partial to that lot 1, but the majority of that's in the stormwater facility, and then the wetland impact B is within lots. Looks like lots 6 and 7.
Yeah, that's the part I don't understand, especially with Part A. There's nothing. I mean, I can understand a little bit in the corner where as Mr. Abel pointed out, it's touching the pad, and you'd want to fill in some of that. But I would think that that's a relatively small. I'm a little bit baffled by the ask for such a big reduction here, because I mean, you could take a little, and obviously this isn't cheap to the developer to buy these credits, but it would seem like you could take a little bit off of Section A and be fine. B, I don't know, maybe half. Obviously I don't have all the specs to that, but it just seems like a lot that could be accommodated with, instead of variance, in a smaller wetland bank purchase. I understand, it's probably been approved. It has been approved as being technically okay, and I don't doubt that. I just think from a policy perspective, I'm just not so sure that it seems a little excessive to me.
I think in part that occurs too to get the density in there that they're looking for. If they were to move that around, they probably would lose a lot, maybe 2 lots. for the
Move
stormwater
the
facility.
lots, you mean? Well, I mean...
No, I'm not asking that.
Impact A, though, I mean, that's all because of the grading of the infiltration basin. I mean, you could start,
Yes.
I suppose, picking at some corners and such, but generally speaking, it's, it's not obviously, like you said, it's not in the developer's benefit to affect wetland.
Right.
Absolutely. I mean, actually, he's actually griping at what he has to do here.
Right.
He's not pleased at all about the amount of credits that he has to purchase. So, to get in, we'd really, I guess, to hammer out the details specifically as to why they're grading it as such, we'd have to get the applicant back as well as their engineer that designed it to get really the nitty gritty. I don't have the answer to it. To Paul's point, MCWD, Hennepin County Environmental, Hennepin, there's the city of Minnetrista, all sit on the advisory panel board and go through the checklist. Like you said, technically it meets those checks. Obviously, if it didn't meet those checks, they wouldn't have allowed for them to go forward with the replacement plan. So, does it technically meet it? And I think, like I said, if we want to get into the nitty gritty about the grading and such, we'd almost have to get into discussion. It's largely because of grading. I can't, specifics why they're grading it as such, but it's a lot to do with that infiltration basin on the north there. To get to that, it's not only what they're affecting, but outside of the slopes to get it to drain to those areas.
So, Mr. Abel, this could be an opportunity to educate us a little bit on these wetland credits. So, I think Mr. Hornby, you might have said that, or one of you did that they would be purchasing these from the Mater property.
Yep.
So how, like, the brief summary of that, how does that work? Or how many is what the price is established based on what?
Based on going rate, essentially. Their rates are established and put on the Bowser website, and they're all over the state. We, though, because of the Mater Bank being established in our city, so when anyone is, now that it's established online and credits are available, the first thing we tell applicants is they need to look to buy there first, preferably, because the idea is if you're taking away wetland in our city, we'd like you to be replaced in our city and not somewhere up in the North Metro or somewhere else. This is the first wetland replacement bank that came in while the Mater Bank came online. You may recall you approved a replacement land not that long ago, and the Mater Bank wasn't online yet. So we asked them to buy from them, but it wasn't ready. It wasn't set up for it yet. So these applicants have abided and listened and will be purchasing from the Mater Bank. The idea with they can't. So you either have to replace the wetlands that you take out at a 2-to-1 rate, and obviously they don't have room to do that here. So your other option is to actually purchase credits from a wetland bank. They're set up in such a way, though, from a cost standpoint, that it's much more costly to buy credits from a bank than it is to actually construct new ones. So generally speaking, developers don't want to do that. They'll look and do everything they can to either not affect them, or if they have to affect them, they'll want to try to replace it on site. So it's kind of a last resort, usually a costly resort, but nonetheless, it's something they have to do if they want to get through it.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
How many credits, is there like a number of credits that they have through that Mater project?
Yes.
So,
yes.
So what is that number, just out of curiosity? Is it?
I don't know how many credits they've been approved for. It breaks down to a per square foot. How many square foot that you're taking out, that's how many you're buying via credits from the Mater Bank.
Times 2.
Correct.
Right.
Correct.
Okay. Did you have any questions, Mike?
I don't really have any questions. No, I'm just kind of surprised that they would go down this path, given the cost, and it would seem like there'd be some other alternatives, but I guess if they're going to pay for it, then that's what they're going to do. So.
Anybody else? Okay. Then we will have a motion to approve letter F, resolution to approve the wetland replacement plan for the ponds of Hunter's Crest. Is there a motion to approve that?
So moved.
And second that?
I'll second.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Opposed.
The motion does pass 3-1. Okay, and Shannon, you had letter G and H.
Yes, thank you. This work change order has to do with, it looks like they didn't anticipate how deep the water level was, and I'm just curious what the normal process is for determining the aquifer water level prior to a bid on a project like this. Do they test it? Do they just estimate worst case scenario? And if it's better than that, they charge us less? Or do they estimate, how do they go about estimating?
Well, it's a good question. With the well, obviously the city looks, number one, is to see that they can find the aquifer and the location where the anticipated well or wells are going to be. And they put in a test well, and then you test pump the test well to try to gain how much your capacity might be under a constructed well. And in well construction, that doesn't necessarily tell you the full capacity of the aquifer. So what ended up happening in this case is they anticipated a water level at a certain point with drawdown on the well. And so if you look at the drawdown the well pump creates when it turns on, it looks like a funnel. So the water, it draws the water table down kind of like a funnel to the pump and then pumps it to the surface. So what ended up happening is as the water is transmitted through the rock, it doesn't come out as fast, or the volume of the well needs to be larger. I don't think that was the case, but they ended up having to put the well deeper so that funnel didn't expose the pump. Mm-hmm. So you need to keep a certain distance of water above the pump. So what they had to do is drop it down further. So the test wells and do give you an idea of what that anticipated water level would be, but it's not exact, so you have to make some estimates on that. And so when SEH did that well design, they did anticipate the water level according to the pumping records and the well geometry, and they need to go down a little bit deeper with the pump. So all it is, it extended the pump itself down below. It didn't expand the chamber or anything for the well.
Is that a pretty normal thing for a change order with something?
Yeah, sometimes it goes the other way too. You don't have to be down as far. So what they do is they give an allowance for it, and they think it's conservative, but in this case they have to go down a little farther to get the capacity we needed.
Okay. Shannon, do you have any other questions?
No.
Anybody else? Okay. So I guess we will take a motion to approve the resolution G to approve the change order number 6 for the 2016 water system improvements, water treatment plant construction CP02-15, and H, the resolution to accept the public improvements and authorize final payment for 2016 water system improvements, water treatment plant construction CP02-15. Do I have a motion to approve those?
So moved.
Second?
I'll second it.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The motion passes 4-0. Okay. Moving on to public hearings, and we do not have any. So moving on to business items. And first one is to approve the conditional offer of employment to Jack Strauss, Public Works Maintenance Worker. And I'm assuming, Cassandra, you are doing this?
Yes,
okay.
Thank you. Madam Mayor, members of the council, I bring this before you on behalf of our personnel committee. This hiring process began a while back. We started our posting in December of 17, if you recall, which was a while ago now. We received 9 applicants, and we extended our closing date until January 19th to get those 9 applicants. 5 interviews were offered. We had 1 decline just due to accepting another position in the meantime. We had a panel consisting of 3 staff members who performed the initial 4 interviews in February. We had 2 very strong final candidates. We brought together 2 other panels with 3 staff each later in February. The candidate recommendation for hire was very close. Either candidate would have been a good fit for us. We did make an initial offer to Nathan Horn, and based on his current benefit structure, he opted not to accept the position. So then Jack, being a very close second, we made an offer to him. And if you recall, we've done this in previous public works situations specifically, but we've left it open for 6 months, and we asked Jack if we could leave him kind of as an active candidate for 6 months in case we had other opportunities come available, and just knowing there's always the potential for our initial offering to fall out. So we were able to do that, and that just saves us some time and money. And then this was a position that was open due to the last maintenance worker not successfully making probation, if you recall as well. So the terms of his employment are attached. Jack would start at level 1. He comes to us from an electrical background, so very green from a public works standpoint, which is why we're looking at level 1. The good news is he does come with a Class A licensure with a tanker endorsement, which is huge for us. He's got 4 years of private sector experience as a lineman with construction equipment, which the large machinery operation is one of the hardest things for them to teach here, and confidence with that. He's got experience with dump trucks, track hose, skid steers, backhoes, forklifts, and then he has done some basic pavement patchwork, which they do if they have to pull up lines and poles as they're working through that. Tree trimming as a result, and then he's done some snow plowing as well. So he's got his foot in the door with some of the things that we look for in a public works candidate, but he'll definitely be mentored by the other staff members that we have as he goes through his training process and his 1-year probation as well. So,
Great.
questions I can answer?
No questions, just a comment that it has seemed to serve us well that if we have more than one candidate that is qualified and good for us to kind of keep them in the queue. And so as far as that strategy seems to be working well for us.
Yes, so we'll continue as that's appropriate for sure.
Anybody else? Okay. So I would make a motion to approve the resolution to approve conditional offer to employment to Jack Strauss, public worker, and maintenance worker. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second?
I'll second.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And the motion passes 4-0. Okay, we have a resolution to accept and approve the LELS Local 116 Police Officers Union contract for 2018 to 2020.
This is going to be in this Tabor as well.
All right.
Yes, absolutely. And Mike can jump in as he sees fit as well. So Personnel Committee is recommending the approval of a new 3-year contract for our police officers, Local 116. As mentioned, the current labor agreement expired on the 31st of 17, but these changes remain legally binding as of the 1st when and if this is approved. So I will just walk you through the changes that happened through the red line, and if you have questions, please don't hesitate to stop me as we go through too, instead of trying to hang on to them until the end. So again, this is a 3-year contract, 2018, January 2018 through December of 2020. Article 11, overtime. So employees are currently compensated at 1.5 times the employee's regular base pay for hours worked in excess. They just asked that we added, including trainings, shootings, and department meetings when outside of the officer's regularly scheduled shifts. So that was just a language cleanup. Article 12 is a recall to duty. So an employee who is recalled to duty during the employee's scheduled off-duty time shall receive a minimum of 3 hours pay. This was 2 at 1.5 hours times the employee's base rate. An extension of or early report to a scheduled shift for duty does not qualify the employee for the 2-hour minimum. So that was an adjustment. So we're doing 3 hours of pay at 1.5 instead of 2, which falls within of the standard that's out there now. And then with Article 13, insurance, as you recall, we put out an MOU, offered for that to be something that they participated in before we did our contract. For 2018, the employer will contribute monies based on the following tiers: the 900, the 1200, and the 1500. That is what we approve for administration as well. And then there will be a insurance reopener for 2019 and 2020. As you recall, we do have to do that yearly now because we're a small group. Previously, we were at the flat 1100 across the board for employees. Uniforms, so under footwear and equipment allowance, the employee shall now be allocated up to $550 for the 3-year terms over the life of the contract. This allowance is based on $183.33 on average per year. Again, it can be spent any time within that. It's over the life of the contract. And the previous allowance for the past 3-year contract was $450. So footwear and equipment costs are just rising, just like any other consumable. Holidays, Article 18, employees required to work on an observed holiday shall be compensated at the rate of 2 times their regular hourly rate, in addition to compensation rates specified in 18.1. This is an increase from the prior contract of 1.5 times their regular hourly rate. So because it is a holiday, time and a half is standard. We did move that to 2 hours. Article 20, standby.
Cassandra, yeah, I had a question. So it's a rate of 2 times their regular hourly rate,
yes,
instead of 1.5.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, because the way I read it, because it said in addition to the compensation rate specified in section 18.1, and that confused me.
Oh, sure. Okay, I could see that, and I believe with 18.1, I don't have it in front of me. Let me just look to see what that was too. With me. Thank you. So 18.1 just acknowledges the holidays we have. So in addition to those holidays that are listed, they want to make sure that
it's not additional
correct
hours. Okay.
Yes. Yep, that's a good clarification. So Article 20 was standby in court time, so whether they're standing by for court or they're in court. Under Article 20.2, an employer required to appear in court during scheduled off-duty time shall receive a minimum of 3 hours of pay at 1.5 times the employee's base rate, and that's increased from 2.5 hours pay at 1.5 times the employee's base rate. So it's that 3 hours versus 2 hours for court standby time.
2.5 there.
I'm sorry?
2.5. 3 versus 2.5.
Yes. Did I say it the opposite way?
You said 3 versus 2. Yeah.
Oh, I apologize.
3 versus 2.5.
Yes, thank you. Merit pay under Article 21.1. Merit pay has been removed from the contract in agreement between both parties. This has not been something that we've implemented for years, so this was a cleanup aspect, just taking it out of our contracts because it's not something that we do and is invalid. Wages, and I did put that if you, you probably don't have it in front of you. I could have made a copy of that. I apologize. If you flip all the way to the back under 21.1 there, officers will receive a 2.5 wage increase in 2018 over 2017, a 2.75 wage increase in 2019 over 2018, and a 3% wage increase in 2020 over 2019. So that's going to be a total, somebody help me with math here, 5.5, 7.5. I think we ended up with 8.5 total over the life of those 3 years. And then in addition to that, we've also added longevity pay. So again, under 21.1, you'll see that mapped out. Level 6 and level 7 wage calculations as they're listed do already include the longevity pay. There is a piece at the end, under the very end of 21.1, where it talks about the increase in longevity pay. We just want to make sure that it's clarified that that increase is already noted in level 6 and level 7. So it's not additional on top of what's listed there. So those are the pay changes. And then 21.2 assignments. We changed the title of this to include investigator, school resource officer, and then we also added a drug task force officer this year, so we added the drug task force. Officers assigned by the employer to the positions of investigator, school resource officer, and drug task force officer shall be paid a differential of the following in place of the prior $1 an hour. We did note that we currently and are planning to have one investigator, one school resource officer, and one drug task force officer. And we did this just to clarify if somebody is on vacation or out, that it only applies to the person who's assigned to this position full-time. So in 2018, it'll be $1.25 per hour. 2019, $1.35 an hour. And 2020, $1.50 an hour for those positions. Article 22.2, the field training officers. So our FTO officers, they train our new staff. Shall receive an additional $2 an hour to their regular rate of pay while actively assigned to FTO duties, an increase of $1 an hour. So they'll only be paid this differential when they're physically training new staff members, new officers.
And since in 2018 we're not scheduled to hire a new police officer, we probably won't be using that. This would be for future years. So.
Article 24 just again reiterates the duration, so it begins January 1st of 18, remains in full force and effective until December 31st of 2020. Any other additional questions? Mike, anything else you'd like to add?
I don't think so. Just to clarify, I guess, the longevity pay, level 6 and level 7 already existed, as most of the council knows when we sat down and kind of reviewed this a few weeks back. Those levels were at 1% for each one of those, and looking at the market, we realized that those were probably a little low. So we kept them the same. Our goal, if you'll see on this contract, you'll probably see in future contracts, and I'll be talking about that under my staff report, kind of where we are with our other bargaining units. But our goal with all 3 labor contracts was to not exceed the 2.5% wage increase for any of the three bargaining units in 2018, since those budgets are already done. So you're going to see increases as you do again with this longevity pay in years beyond 2018. So we put the 2017 in here as a reference point. You can see the 2018 pay in that particular pay for the longevity pay is the exact same as 17. Again, we tried to, kind of knowing where our budgets are for this year, keep it kind of where we're at already and not have to dip into the funds beyond that. And you'll see other increases kind of out in the future years of all labor union, or all these labor union contracts, including this one. So that was our thinking on all of those.
And that's a good clarification. Thank you.
Just 2 comments as a personnel committee member. The negotiations for these contracts, these union contracts this year, have been fairly time-consuming. We've gone back and forth a few times, but we're getting there. So appreciate Ms. Maroney and Ms. Tabor's efforts there.
And Mr. Grimm.
And Mr. who?
Grimm
as well. Be remiss if I did not include Mr. Grimm.
Always include Mr. Grimm.
Yeah. Also just wanted to point out to the council that Article 13 that you mentioned, I guess it's on page 111, where now whether union or non-union employees of the city, now instead of a flat contribution, it's the, this year for an employee, $900, for an employee and child or employee and spouse, $1,200, or family, $1,500. And that is something that we've been working towards, correct?
Yes, we approved that for the budget for this calendar year. And so we're trying not to deviate from the same program for whether it's union, non-union employees. So, so far we've been successful in keeping all employees on the same kind of going rates. So,
which
makes
with the intent of it being more equitable.
Correct.
Yeah.
Any other questions? So I was wondering about the budget myself, how that worked into the budget.
Yeah, I mean, it would be budgeted rate increases for the year and brought forward the information related to the
benefits, we try to keep that in mind as we move forward in labor negotiations, since we're settling labor contracts beyond this calendar year. So, like I said, our goal all along was to we know what we're fixed at for this year and try to keep that. And much to the chagrin, I think, of the bargaining units, they'd love to have gotten an increase beyond what the status quo is for all employees here that are not in a labor union, but they were very accommodating as we work through this stuff.
So, and now this year it'll be easier because we will know the numbers, right?
This year is easier, but every year from here on out, just the way our benefits are working, as Cassandra mentioned, we're no longer part of the Lotus group as a couple of years ago. So we're going out for health insurance quotes every year now instead of every 5 years as we were in the past. So.
But for the wage piece is a lot. You can see what's out
Right.
in 2019
Up to
and 2020, so you can plug those
Which
into
this
the
year it was
right.
kind of a,
you
hope,
estimate,
right? To a
look at the
degree.
market.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
And as far as the union contracts, they're 3-year term. So now once these are in place, it'll be 3 years before we go through this process again.
Yep, it's always a shake of the dice for both us and the union to come up with a percent that we think is fair, they think is fair. 2.5 seems fair this year. In 2020, 3%, that could be a bargain for us. It may not be, who knows? It kind of depends on the economy, but we think we're in the ballpark. That's our job to try to get us there, so we think we're there. So we'll see what happens.
Anybody else? All right. So we will take a motion to approve the resolution to accept and approve the LELS Local 116 Police Officers Union contract for 2018 to 2020.
So moved.
A second?
Second.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The motion passes 4-0. And the last one is the resolution for approved construction cooperative agreement with MCES for City Lift Station 9 and MCES County Road 44 Interceptor Project.
Good
I think
evening.
this is you, Paul.
Yes, it is. Good evening, Mayor and members of the council. In your packet is a construction cooperative agreement, and it is with the Metropolitan Council. It's for their project they're calling the Mound Area Interceptor Force Main Improvements, and that is this project's been in the works for a little bit more, I think, than 2 years. And it extends from a maintenance facility of the MCES on West Edge Boulevard, and the route extends down through the Lake Minnetonka Regional Park to Trunk Highway 7. And so what the Met Council is doing is building an additional dual force main essentially down County Road 44 to their gravity system along Trunk Highway 7. Along with those improvements, the MCS currently has a force main along this route, and the city has a number of lift stations 6, 7, 8, and 9 that, I should say 6, 7, and 8 that connect directly to that interceptor. That typically is not ideal because if there's a failure in a city lift station valve, that can cause a backup in the city system. The Met Council also doesn't like that because it could create a problem for the city system. So through the design process, the Met Council's designed some city improvements to go along with their improvements. And so what they've done is designed a separate force main that would take the effluent flow from lift stations 6, 7, 8, and 9 and put it in a city force main that would parallel County Road 44 and discharge into their gravity system in Lake Minnetonka Regional Park. So it takes a shorter force main that the city currently owns and maintains that plugs directly into a pressure pipe of the Met Council, puts it into a longer city force main that dumps into a gravity system. There's less risk both for the city and for the Met Council in doing so. As part of the agreement with this, Lift Station 9 needs some improvements. Lift Station 9 used to pump to Lift Station 8, and so it had smaller pumps, didn't have as much pressure to pump against. So in order to rehabilitate that lift station, they'll add new pumps, new controls, new piping within the station. The new force main, I'm trying to think what the length was. I want to say it was like right around 1,800, 2,000 feet. And varies in size as you get closer to Highway 7. And the Met Council is also renegotiating an easement for the city. There's a lift station 7. just want to make sure I didn't misquote that.
Lift Station 9.
Lift Station 9, there's a easement that's currently a pedestrian easement. So if we want to do maintenance on that lift station, the Public Works has to walk down through the yards, get to the lift station. If they have to haul pumps out, they have to haul them out with a winch, haul them out with a cart. You can't drive vehicles down there. So what the Met Council is doing is adding value to that and negotiating an easement with the property owner to allow for vehicle access. Because now we're going to have bigger pumps in that lift station. They're going to be much heavier to get out, so you need a truck to lift those out of there. Overall, the improvements that the MCS has designed for the city that is involved in the project is about $1.1 million, and the value of the easement is valued somewhere in that $15,000 to $20,000 range. The Met Council is paying for the entire design, the construction, the day-to-day construction observation. Basically, they design the city system and they'll observe the construction. There is a component that the city will end up paying for. There are a number of meetings that would be needed for during construction, and staff would attend only those meetings that are appropriate for when Minnetrista work is under construction. That would include the pre-construction meeting, and also they typically have weekly meetings when construction's active. And the goal would be just to attend those as needed. If engineering is required at the meetings, or operations. So Gary, if it's more operation or maintenance item, sometimes maybe both of us. Anticipating that the cost of those meetings and activity, perhaps even some on-site construction, is going to be in that $25,000 to $30,000 range over the 2-year period. The city does have some costs that have been expended to date for plan review and also negotiation of the easement, and that's estimated about $10,000. I think that's a little bit higher than that now, and that's for your consultant staff, and that does not include city staff time. But the city staff and the attorneys and the engineers have reviewed the cooperative agreement. We got this to the point where it's, I think, mutual benefit to both parties, the city and the Met Council, and Resolution 51-18 is in your packet for your consideration of approval.
Mr. Hornby, I see that this is going starting in 2018 and ending in 2020. Do they expect that they will be done before the summer of 2020?
Largely, yes. I think the majority of the work in Minnetrista, at least on the County Road 44 corridor, is going to be in 2019 for the major work. The exception to that is there will be utility relocation going on, especially the gas main on County Road 44, and that would occur in 2018. So you will see construction work occurring in the corridor, not the major work that's going to require the complete reconstruction of County Road 44. So County Road 44 will essentially be closed with limited access. And what I mean by that is there will be access from the north or from the south or from both during construction. And so there's some logistics and deals to be worked out during that phase, especially with emergency services and so forth.
Do they have a scheduled start date?
Not yet. They've opened bids. They are anxious for the city, Hennepin County, and the city of Mound to approve the agreement so they can make the award. They won't award until the agreements are in place.
So, like, your best guess on an estimated start month?
I think they actually want to start in April.
Wow.
I should also point out there is I don't know if the informational packet is included here in this council packet, but there will be some construction work closing the intersection of County Road 44 and County Road 110. That's kind of part of this project, but not really. It's the mountain portion of it, and they've got a period of time when schools are on spring break, and they want to hit that window with some construction. So you may have seen some equipment sitting at that intersection. They're getting ready to start work on the 23rd. So that's in this contract, but it's actually the city of Mound's work,
right?
But not part of this agreement. So the Met Council has prepared an agreement for the city of Minnetrista, separate one for the city of Mountain, a separate one for Hennepin County, depending on the work and the benefit to each one of those governmental agencies.
Will Minnetrista residents know when Mound is going to be worked on? Because that is pretty heavy traffic.
There will be a well, the notices are on the website. They're on there already.
Yep.
That intersection will be
Okay.
closed, and the detour is posted in that memorandum. There is, I think they already got warning signs up indicating that the road will be closed during that date. So, at least they do on. I came up from Highway 7 and definitely had that signage up on County Road 44.
And our cost, was this built into the budget?
Yeah, I mean, these will come out of the water and sewer funds seen there for a lift station and water main improvements that, the Met Council is paying obviously for all the improvements, and we just have our staff time and, our consultant time portion of it. But yeah, it's part of our water and sewer budget, is correct. Yep.
So the cost that Minnetrista is going to incur is going to be about $40,000, and is some of that staff time, or is it all WSB time?
Not all that time is WSB time.
So it's both.
It's all the above, although that dollar amount does not include city staff time. It's attorneys and the engineers.
Okay. And I'm just wondering if we should include that amount in the resolution that we're approving. Don't we normally do that?
As far as what we estimate, like Gary's time and stuff, is that what you're thinking?
Yeah, like the $40,000 is what we're anticipating for
On page
this.
133.
On page 133.
And the fiscal impact, you're just trying to
Oh,
tie that 10 that's the
Already been
initial
sure.
and the estimated 25 and 30 into the final total of 40 into the resolution. Is that what you're trying
Yes.
to do? Okay.
I'm fine with that. Yeah.
That can certainly be done. Yes.
Okay.
So
You
do we,
can just add that to the resolution.
Yeah.
okay.
Okay.
So we want to add in a total estimated amount of $40,000 to cover for staff time? Is that how you
Staff and consultants.
cost
Yeah.
for staff?
Look for the right word, thank you.
Yeah, I guess the question I would have is it worth? I think that's good to have in there, but then is it also nice to put in there how it's outlined in the memo? I mean, we are getting an estimated $1.1 million in benefits, so I don't want to lose track of that either.
Sure.
So
But we don't usually do that at our cost for staff.
This isn't for staff.
This is
just-
for
just for
W's.
consultants.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Anything else? Okay, so I guess, see if I can word this right. We're looking for approval on the resolution to approve the construction cooperative agreement with MCES for City Lift Station 9 and MCES County Road 44 Interceptor Project with a total estimated cost of $40,000 for consultant fees. Good? All right. Do I have a motion to pass that?
So moved.
A second?
I'll second that.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, the motion passes 4-0. And that covers our business items for tonight. So we'll move to administrative items. And I'll start with you, Mike.
Yeah, I've got a whole list. That's what happens when I go on vacation. So. The first one is probably the most detailed, and I'm going to try to explain kind of where we're going with this. So as the council knows, one of the things that we're trying to do, and have tried already in the past without success, is to find a location for a water tower. I think we've done a pretty good job, but for one reason or another, the one site we did find didn't quite make it through the process. And we're still looking. So one of the things that city staff talked about is maybe taking a different approach. David gave me a pretty good analogy. He's like, we're the hamster on the wheel. We're just kind of spinning. And we're going somewhere, but we're not going somewhere very fast. So one of the things we thought we would run by the council, and hopefully I'll get some head nods at the end of my short presentation on this particular topic, is I've already made contact with Miles Jensen, who's the principal for SEH. We still have a contract with them to construct a water tower. That has not gone away, even though we finished the other pieces of our water puzzle, so to speak. We did the 2 water plants and the water main connector. So what we need to do and what we hope to do is to have the council agree with us that what we'd like to do is reconnect with our current engineering vendor, SEH, and kind of take a step back and sit down with them and say, from an engineering standpoint, where can we put this water tower? Don't worry about the political things. Don't worry about the neighbors. It's where would be the best place or places to put a water tower. Kind of draw rings on a map and say, here's why. And then give us some estimates about why these would be good, both positive and negative. Looking at topography, looking at distance away from the water main. The longer you're further away, the more main you got to put in, which is a cost. All sorts of things. And then bring that back to the council. Pros and cons of everything. I'm sure it'll include Lyle Park, and it could include both options at Lyle Park, the above-ground tower and the at-grade water structure, whatever you want to call it. And then bring that back to the council and say, from an engineering standpoint, here's where we think it could go. And then we're going to have to make some decisions on which ones you'd like to do. It could be based on cost. It could be for political reasons. Maybe we want to put it near a certain neighborhood. But we know when we were going through this in the last year or so that there are some places really far away from the neighborhoods in Turtle Creek and Hunter's Crest where they'd love to see the tower, not near them. And that's just not feasible. We already kind of know that, but we would like to, like I said, reconnect with our engineer, try to come up with some real fact-based, engineering-based options for you to consider instead of us just continuing to contact potential property owners. We've started some of that again. We hit a brick wall with one. We're not getting calls returned by another. And it's, again, the hamster on the wheel kind of analogy. We're just kind of spinning our wheels. We want to do it, but we're just not getting any traction here. So if the council's okay with us reconnecting with our engineer, I don't think it's going to take us all that long. We're meeting tomorrow on the topic. I'm trying to set up a meeting with SEH for the following week, and then we can go from there and bring back, eventually, it's not going to be in 2 weeks, but we can bring back something that says, here's why these are the best 3, 4, or 5 areas, and here's the cost for each, and then you guys can punch holes in it or whatever it is that you want to do to kind of figure out where we're going. I think that would be helpful for us.
And this would be something that'd be a little outside the scope of the current contract we have right. I mean, we have them to design, the tower once it's ready, to go. But this would be helping us, I guess, even not physically helping us finding a land site per se, but at least telling us, where it would be best to go. Because we don't have that right now.
So do we have? Are we expecting a cost to that?
Yeah, and that would be part of the exploration with SEH and say, we know we got your quote on the hook to do the work for the tower, but we need to be able to have you do this additional piece, as Brian noted, and we need to know the cost of that work that you'll provide for us, and we could bring that obviously back before we say go.
And it's
a more conceptual meeting with them first of all. That could come back in relatively short order. I won't say next meeting, but relatively short order. So.
And SEH is still under contract?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. How long are they under contract with us for?
Till they're done.
Oh, okay.
I mean, we're not gaining or losing anything, and neither are they by just having it sit there. So we thought, well, this is a good opportunity. We would have to add something to it, as Brian mentioned, but these still give us a chance to, like I said, on an engineering basis, where are the best places to potentially put this tower? Nobody wants to live by it. We all know we need it, but we still have to do some analysis, or they have to do some analysis for us.
There are some places where, aren't there some places where we know we don't want to put it?
Oh, for sure. Or people don't want to sell to us or whatever. So
I guess what I'm wondering is, I don't want to waste time looking at places where we know that we don't want to put it.
Oh, yeah, that's fine. I mean, I have no problem describing that to our friends at SEH. What ultimately could, and you can't rule out the options, there may be a point where we have to go after a piece of property that neighbors don't want us to go after it. It could be the eminent domain. I hate to use those words, but because it's such a taboo thing to say in Minnetrista, but that obviously could be one of the options. But again, if you want to weigh that against maybe have it instead of that one, where it might be an eminent domain thing, let's go over here and it's not, what's the cost difference? Do you guys really feel as if that's worth it or not worth it? You know?
And we can share with them what we know so far and give them at least a little bit of parameters, but mainly just try to turn them loose. And they might have people that even have more experience in helping with identifying pieces of land, and even I guess an analogy, I know on the water main, we use some right-of-way services to help there, because it's not something we're doing every day to acquiring easements and right-of-way and stuff.
They have a right-of-way person, I'm sure. I know WSB does. I'm sure SEH does. They're quite helpful. Kind of takes the city out of the equation for a little. They have a client, is what they do when they approach the. Not every client's going to want to build a water tower, but when you're trying to buy a piece of land, so.
It seems to me that this is where we are. That we've exhausted our own resources or thoughts on options, and now we need to go to an expert. Certainly, we don't want to spend money unnecessarily, but you've got the opportunity to meet with them, give them some information, get a
if they can give us a scope of services,
scope of services, and then see how to proceed from there.
Yeah.
Because the answer is not to not build a water tower.
Right.
That's not a valid answer or viable option, in my opinion.
We need one. It's just where. So.
Well, I think you're spinning the wheels. Your comment is absolutely true. And I do kind of like, no matter what you decide on, we will always have somebody that doesn't like it,
Absolutely.
So, in my opinion, I think it would be great to have this engineering standpoint to back up whatever decision we make.
Yeah.
I think that would help us as council members, too. Do you agree?
So you're not really, voting on anything tonight? I don't need your approval. I just need some head nods if this is an okay direction to go. Maybe the scope of service is $100,000. You say no way, and then we just go back to doing what we were doing. But hopefully we'll see what this is.
Okay.
A few other items. You approved one labor contract tonight. We're very close on Local 49. They generally accepted the terms of the agreement. They still have to vote on it as a union. That vote will be taking place this week. If accepted, we've already been working on the red line in anticipation of them accepting, and so you should see that on the next council agenda. That's our goal. I don't see, unless something comes up that I'm not aware of tonight as I talk about this, I'm fairly certain you'll see that on the next council meeting. We're still working on the police supervisor's contract. We do have a labor negotiation scheduled this week as well on Wednesday afternoon, so we'll see where we go. If we hit another brick wall with them on our negotiations, the next step could be mediation, but hopefully we're not, but we'll see what happens. I'm going to give a couple other items. First one is we had a request from the West Tonka School District about upgrading. They're upgrading some of their recreational areas near the water tower, city's water tower. They're adding paving parking lots, and they're trying to connect a couple of parking lots with paved surface instead of gravel. And they asked us if we would be okay with that. And the reason they're asking us because we have a very small chunk of the land that they would like to take for use. So we turned Ron loose, checked on the property, check on the deed and all that. Nothing really popped up. There's really no, kind of downside to this. We're going to take a gravel access that we already use and turn it into a paved access that they'll pay for. We don't really have the opportunity like you would with a private landowner to potentially lose that under the adverse possession kind of thing. So I gave the go-ahead on a handshake agreement. They were fine with that. They'll be giving us updates on once they start to finalize their plans, and I'll bring those to you. Probably put them in the info packet if need be, or the council meeting. But just so you know that you may see some construction up there that's part of city land, very small part, but it works for us, and I think it should work for them as well. Just a calendar item on June 4th, that's the night of a city council meeting. We've asked, when we were at the Police Communications Committee last time, as you know, the police department is one of many that purchased that emergency management vehicle from the federal government, and they've reconditioned this thing, and it's been ready and operational for a while, but we'd like to kind of show it off. So on that night during our work session at 6 o'clock, we're going to have that vehicle here, so council can certainly go look at it. We're calling it a joint session with the St. Bonnie Council. They normally don't meet that night, we do, but they want to come over and see that since they're helping pay for that through our contract with them for police services. So they're going to be here as well. So, and finally, just an FYI on, I think Councilmember Bruce mentioned a while ago that Minnetonka Beach was, I don't know if unhappy is the right word, but they were interested in looking at the current percentages as assigned through the formula for their piece of the Mound Fire Department contract. And we met on February 21st here at City Hall, and the fire chief, Greg Peterson, has been working on it. A draft was given out to us that attend that meeting, so Councilmember Bruce, Mayor Whalen, and I got a copy of that. We actually have a slight decrease in our dollar amount. Initially, we thought we might have an increase, but we actually have a slight decrease. But again, this is just a draft, and we'll be working through that. So, you may see something come forward about an adjustment to the fire contract. Minnetonka Beach was thinking of pulling out of the contract entirely, and as Councilmember Bruce mentioned that night, she brought it up about a month ago that, if we kept them in, we might see a slight increase, but if they left, it'd be a larger increase. So I think this is kind of a win-win, so we'll see where that goes. And I think that's it. That was a lot.
That's a lot.
Sorry.
All good, though. Anybody else?
I do quick, Madam Mayor and Council. So just a brief update. As you recall, you directed staff to work on a short-term rental ordinance. We have gotten a few calls about that, so I just wanted to update the council and then just run by you what our plan is in terms of reviewing this draft ordinance. So there is a draft that's available, and we're planning on taking that to the March 26th Planning Commission meeting. However, what we're going to do is just do a lot of informational stuff with the Planning Commission, similar to what you guys have heard with Andrew, the city attorney. The Planning Commission hasn't really dove into much of the detail on it. So what we plan on doing is really just informing them, educating them, giving them an opportunity to review the draft ordinance, ask them not to take action, but to go ahead and continue the public hearing into the April 23rd Planning Commission meeting. And what we would like to do in the meantime is we do already have a list, and we'll be asking for people to submit to us properties that are doing short-term rental, because what we'd like to do is notify them that the city is working on the short-term rental ordinance. In looking as to what's happened in other communities with how ordinances go, it seems that at some point they're going to get notified of this new ordinance. Wouldn't it be best that we notify them before an official ordinance has been adopted so that everyone has an opportunity to provide that public comment? So as long as everyone is okay with that, we have published, like we do any other ordinance, in our newspaper that we're working on this. But the plan with this is to take another step and actually notify people. Obviously, those who are supporting the ordinance are paying attention. They're planning on submitting comment. Another good reason for delaying it is March 26th is West Tonka spring break, so many of the residents who have brought this up as a concern are going to be gone and raise that as a concern. So we've asked them to submit written comment, let them know this is our game plan, that if they can come at the April 23rd meeting, their voice could be heard then and be part of the record, in addition to their written comments. So kind of worked out for a couple of reasons to do it this way. So the council would likely then see the ordinance at one of your meetings in May, as long as depending upon what the Planning Commission ends up doing with it. But that's where we're tracking with it right now to date. So just wanted to give an update on that. And then also I need someone from the council to attend the March 26th Planning Commission meeting. Okay. That's all I have.
Yep, I did. So I just wanted to give a report on State of the City, which happened very recently. And on behalf of Mayor Whalen, she asked as well that we just thank the residents, the staff, the council who were able to make it out that evening. We had right around 40 people in attendance. That puts us just above last year, so we're maintaining some consistency, which is great. We made some changes, so we switched the reception where they were able to socialize. We did that first, thinking that that might go a little bit better this year. Turns out that didn't work very well. People grabbed their cookies and came and sat down and stared at us. So careful not to start early because we didn't want those who did adhere to the published schedule to miss anything. We were able to create some socializing moments. So next year we'll swap that back so that people are able to stay afterwards if they're wanting to socialize or chat with council members or staff. So that went well. We also added, if you recall, I believe 2 meetings ago, I brought up a new resource that I had found out about when I went to a conference called Adobe Spark, and it just allows us to put together a different type of media. So I put together a slideshow with not all of the pictures, a majority of the pictures, a large quantity of the pictures from the last year, and we were able to set those to music, and I get really good feedback from our residents just in seeing themselves in the pictures that we're taking. So kudos especially to our police department who've done a really good job as they're out in the field of catching some of the moments that they're a part of, volunteer opportunities that I don't always get to see, and then just all of our events as well. So that went really well. Obviously, Mayor Whalen spoke and stuck to her half hour so that we could keep people on schedule, which we strive to do. And then we'll be doing that next year as well. Starting next year, we're also, now that we've got 2 of these under our belt, we're going to organize the recording of that as well so that people are able to view it later. And then this year what I'm doing is I'm building a section of the website, and I had hoped to have it done by the end of last week, but just wasn't able to finish that out, to be able to put our State of the City PowerPoints and do those in archive format so people can look back, and then also put the slideshow up for people as well. And since it's a different format, that's kind of the piece that I'm working on that's slowing me down a little bit and getting that up. So people weren't here able to see that too. So very well attended, and we have really good feedback. So here's to next year.
Great. Shannon?
Yeah, I know sometimes things get buried in the information packet, and I just wanted to call everyone's attention to the high-speed internet thread that I asked Cassandra to share with you all, and she put it in the packet. But I think it highlights and demonstrates some of the frustration that's out in the community just around FrontierNet and Mediacom and just the state of internet in the rural parts of Minnetrista. There were over 60-some comments, and it's grown since then. I mean, it's an active thread that just keeps going. So I think I'm looking forward to when we can actually talk about how we can put out a welcome mat to service providers and we can brainstorm how we can make Minnetrista a place that they want to come, and how we can sort of break through some of the barriers that are out there, cost barriers or regulatory barriers that are out there that keep them from coming. I know I've seen, I was at the Planning Commission meeting the other day, and Verizon is putting up an additional tower, and I saw 20 pages of documents that they had to submit to do that. And I'm not saying that they shouldn't have done that, but I think there are a lot of things that we can look at to try and make it easier for service providers to bring high-speed internet to Minnetrista, and I'm looking forward to doing that. And it's worth looking at that blog because I think it really does emphasize and demonstrate that it's a problem.
On that blog, was that all? That wasn't all Minnetrista residents.
No.
Do you know how many were from which cities? And
I didn't count them. It's the Minnetonka area, so I noticed there were several from Minnetrista. There were several from Mound. There were several from Spring Park and Navarre, and it's a Minnetonka area next door site.
well, maybe it's something that all those cities could pool together ideas And
Exactly. And there are some cities that are doing that have consortiums that are working together, because a tiny city like Minnetrista doesn't have the resources and doesn't have the pull that we might have if we collaborated with other cities. So, yeah.
Mike?
On the LMCD, a couple of items of note. Talked to Mike a little bit about this morning, and I'll bring it up for the council. This is the 50th year of the LMCD, and as part of that, what we're trying to do as an organization is get out to the cities as part of their festivals and just do a little educational outreach, booth kind of thing. And so, obviously, the closest thing we have to that would be Minnetrista Days. So, just checking to see if anyone has any reservations about that. Otherwise, I'd probably proceed with doing that.
Great.
Yeah, I mentioned to Councilmember Molitor that, our main contact for Trista Day is Amy. I'll mention it to her. I'll contact the director and try to see if we can link those two together. And if they want to have a tent or a booth at the Trista Day, that'd be great. So.
The other thing I want to mention about the LMCD, we're entering into the fiscal year 2019 budget for the organization, which will have to be ratified by July 1st. And as we're doing that, one of the things we talked about for the 18 budget, and it's coming to light now, is we ended up 2018 about break even, which was pretty good considering what we originally started at. But part of looking at the rest of the fiscal 2018 is that we are stretched for possibly the invasive species inspection program that we have at 3 launches. Obviously, there's more than 3 launches throughout the lake. Some of the other launches are patrolled by the DNR or inspected by the DNR, but there are 3. One of which is in Minnetrista, I believe it's the Halstead
Regional Park.
Yeah, and there's 2 more that are in other parts of the lake that the LMCD has funded. We have not come to a conclusion, but one of the things that's being considered is not funding those inspections this year, just because we don't have the money. We have some grants that are available that would bring the cost down by $10,000, $15,000, but it still leaves about $15,000 or so to remain at the staffing level that we've had in the past. Currently, we do 3 days a week, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Those are obviously the high traffic times, 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. And we're balancing that against needs such as the harvesting of the aquatic species, which last year was a huge issue. Just we had more weed growth than ever, and we expect the same this year. So, trying to determine priorities, and part of the theme is picking and choosing, and perhaps picking one and trying to excel at that rather than spreading ourselves thin and not being good at anything. But there are obviously some competing opinions on that. So I just want to give everyone the heads up that it's possible, it's not yet been decided, but it's possible that we may not have those inspections this year. So
That would be unfortunate. I mean, the invasive species with Lake Minnetonka, that's so critical.
it is,
But
it's
difficult
also,
decisions that you have to make.
it's difficult decisions, and it's also it's no secret that these aren't 24/7. And so there's people that will wait till after 6 o'clock to get off the lake to just avoid the inspection. So it ends up being, I guess people like to think of it as on one end of the extreme, that we've got to do this because we have to stop aquatic invasive species, which we do. However, that's not really what you're going to do with an inspection program. Really, with an inspection program, you're going to do more education and teaching people about what best practices are. You will, of course, catch various things just because that's the way people are. But to think that it's going to be a foolproof, this is going to catch everything, is really delusional. And so, again, to your point, we have to kind of figure out where the best use of the dollars are. And we, at last Wednesday's meeting, sent the staff back to see if we could find some other creative ways to do it, but obviously we can't pull a rabbit out of the hat, so we'll have to revisit that pretty soon, probably in the next meeting, because obviously staffing decisions have to be made for the summer. So just kind of FYI.
I participated in the Personnel Committee regarding the labor agreements and Public Works. Those are moving along. So just at the last council meeting, I told you that Tim and I have decided to downsize from our home in Minnetrista and that I would keep you updated. In April, we are moving forward with purchasing a condo in Excelsior. Therefore, after much consideration, I've decided to resign from my position. Sorry, I'm a crier. To resign from my position on the City Council effective tomorrow, March 20th. While I have enjoyed serving the City of Minnetrista, I feel it would be more appropriate for someone who plans to live in Minnetrista for the foreseeable future to fill my seat and vote on behalf of the residents. That was the easy part. I may hand it over to you. I'll try to struggle through and sound like you can understand me. It has been an honor to serve the residents of Minnetrista as a City Council member. Additionally, it has been my privilege to work with a highly qualified city staff. I'm not going to look at you because then I'll cry, for whom I have had a great deal of respect. It has also been my privilege. She's not even here. To serve with such a great mayor, Mayor Whalen, and the other city council members with whom I have served over the past 3 years. I wish Minnetrista the best in the years ahead. Sorry for the crying. So,
I don't know what to say. Congratulations, but we are greatly going to miss you.
It wasn't a decision that was made easily, but I feel like it's the right decision for the city, for someone to serve who, is going to be here for the foreseeable future, as I said.
Well, you are greatly respected, and not only as council member, but as a friend. And I am going to miss you. So,
you have a goal.
That's true. So,
Yeah, thanks.
So, following that, I just had a WCC meeting. We had someone from Three Rivers on the board meeting come in and speak. And they were very interested in a lot of people there at WCC in joining us for the city bus tour. So I talked to Cassandra about that, and I'm going to start reserving spots ahead of time, now that we have dates, and kind of pre-sell the tickets ahead of time. So Spirit of the Lakes is coming up, and we will probably have to decide, do we have to vote on that, if we're going to be silver membership again this year, or?
Past councils and the current council have kind of gone with that. I don't think so. I mean, I think it's a good community involvement for a really minor amount of dollars. So, I mean, to be kind of a good neighbor and be part of the Spirit of the Lakes, I think is a good thing to do. So, I think we're good.
Okay. That sponsorship form will be coming soon. So, and the dates are for Spirit of the Lakes is July 20th and the 21st. So, and that's all I have. So, can we make a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
A second?
Second.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And motion passes 4-0.